Because most of us here grew up in the United States, and we are steeped in Western Jewish Christian tradition and culture, we seldom recognize the extent to which our lives are informed and our actions embedded in that culture. For example, if I were to stand out on Franklin Street and ask people coming by to tell me what we mean by the word worship, most people would answer, they would say, well, worship is paying reverent honor and homage to God or a sacred personage. This is the first definition in the dictionary. To worship is to pay homage to God. That is one way of worshiping. But there are other forms of worship. For example, in the Buddhist tradition, when Buddha was asked about God, he said, well, he was agnostic, which means we don't know. He says, I don't know if there's a God or not. And we can't know whether God exists or not, but we can live our lives according to that. So people who follow Buddhist teachings do not center the worship around a God. There's other ways of worshiping. If we were to look for the root definition of worship, the definition which includes all forms of worship, across cultures and all traditions, it would be something like this. Worship in community is the coming together of people to intentionally articulate, hold up, and celebrate the values we have in common. And if we were to ask an individual how they worship, worship is living their highest values. That's how they worship. If you live your values, you're worshiping. One can worship money, gratuitous sex, drugs, alcohol. When one worships such, that is their highest value, and they spend their lives on it, that's how they worship. One will worship something, one will spend one's life on what is most valued. If you came here from Mars and wanted to figure out what Americans worship, it'd soon become apparent. Generally, Americans are materialists, and we worship money and those things that money can buy. You would find the cathedrals of worship in all of our cities, the highest buildings, to be the centers of finance. The 9/11 terrorists knew what they were doing when they attacked the World Trade Centers. That was the spiritual center of New York City, the center of finance. You want to know Chapel Hill? Just go to the shopping malls and you can see what we value the most. For the years of my youth, I worshiped the God of Jewish and Christian tradition. My life was centered on the values and truths taught by Jesus. As a fundamentalist, Bible-thumping Jesus freak, by the way, I was a Jesus freak before they called him Jesus freak. This was a 60s term. We had hippies and we had Jesus freaks. Well, I was before that. A couple of years studying chemical engineering shook my belief in the absolute truths of the Bible. One of the fundamentalist beliefs is the Bible is absolutely true. That's a fundamentalist belief. So I started believing that because I studied science. I found out the world was not, as the Bible teaches, 6,000 years old. It isn't flat. It is not the center of the universe. It's a teeny little speck. So that, in effect, changed my life, and I started looking to science to find truths. So my belief journey evolved, and I moved to the worship science. When I wanted to know what was true, I would look and see what science said about it. And then I moved on to worship education. I believed that the answer to all the world's problems was education. Educate people, they'll do the right thing. Too many people in the world educate people, they'll have less children. Too much violence, educate people, there'll be less violence. One of the first sermons I ever gave was salvation by education. I practiced what I preached. I got 1 BA and 2 masters. Then my journey evolved, and I moved on to social action. peace and justice work. Make the world a better place by walking the talk. Evolve myself in social, political, and hands-on service to other people. There's a big debate in the New Testament, in the early church, whether you get saved by works or by faith. And I was, at that period in my life, deciding I'm going to be saved by works. Then I moved on to that, from that to baseball. Wrigley Field became my cathedral. Ernie Banks was my primary saint. Throwing out the first pitch was a ritual. And I chose the Cubs because I wanted to learn about loss and suffering. Somebody asked me after the service, they said, well, now that they've won, I said, originally I said, I'm not going to die until the Cubs win. So then they won, so I can die now. But they have another 100 years to win, so I have another reason to live another 100 years. So then I, by the way, Susan B. Anthony, when she was asked about her, what is your religion? She was a Unitarian. She was asked, what is your religion? She says, look at my life, and you'll know what my religion is. This is how I worship. Want to know how I worship? Look at my life, consider my highest values. That is how I worship. So I urge you all, as a homework assignment, go home and figure out, first of all, figure out what your highest values are. Maybe you know, but sometimes you do a little search. And when we used to have our pledge drives here at church, I'd tell people, if you want to know how much you value the church, pull out your checkbook, pull out your calendar book, and that'll show you how much you value the church. Well, you can't do that anymore because now all this stuff is on some kind of a little iPad or something. But the thing still works. Where do I spend my money? Where do I spend my time? That's what I value. But worship can also be communal, which is one of the main tasks of a church. Church provides a place and time for our weekly coming together to build community, centered in worship, celebrating our shared values. To me, that's what makes it worship. We come here to celebrate our shared values. That's why I chose Unitarian Universalism. That's the movement with which I share my values, my most values. We don't have a creed as far as theology goes. We don't ask you what your beliefs are. But they've done studies on Unitarian Universalism. They'll poll people in the pews. And what they found out is that we're in 95% agreement on values. One value is intimacy. One value is the environment. Another, so you see what I'm saying? 95% of us agree on these things. So what do we mean here at Community Church when we say we come here to worship? I think a good way to answer that would be to look at our standard order of service. See what it says about our worship. We begin by sounding the gong. We do that because people enter the sanctuary bringing with them their busyness. And we sound the gong as a reminder, let go. Be here, leave behind all that stuff. Be fully present here. It's time to turn off your beepers, turn off your phones and other gadgets, turn on to openness. Be open to sharing with other people yourselves. Get outside of yourselves. We value the openness. We sing a hymn of gathering. We join our voices, young and old, on and off key, in making community. That is the meaning of communion, by the way, making community. One of my favorite remembrances of this church is back when Donna Fisher was our music director. She always made sure that when I led a hymn that I stood away from the microphone. She would really panic because I was terrible. I'm a terrible singer. If the tune is familiar, what does it do? If you have a familiar tune, it'll bring back memories. Maybe a childhood memory of maybe a a child dedication in a church, a memorial service, or a wedding. That's what music does. It brings back memories, but it also connects us in the community. We continue creating community in a ritual of welcome when we welcome visitors and guests, newcomers. Doing this, we recognize that our minds and hearts are open to the gifts that other people bring here, and that we're willing to share our lives with them, and we're asking them to share their lives with us. We value diversity. And we talk about events and programs coming up at church and in the wider community. In doing so, we are saying, these are the things we value. We only talk about the things that we value. At the same time, we're inviting people to spend some of your valuable time on these things. One can tell a lot about the church, about what it does within and without the words. Today we had to share the plate. You can tell that's one of the things we value. When we light the chalice, which is a symbol of our shared tradition, we're reminding ourselves of deep connection to a great cloud of witnesses, to the people who have come before us. We have 1,500 years of shared tradition. People have prepared the way for us. The cup of the flaming chalice is a cup of communion, and it's a flame. That's what the flaming chalice is. The cup of the flaming chalice symbolizes universalism, the belief that all people are one, all people are children of the one source of life, and nothing, neither creed, nor race, nor class, nor any human construct separates us. We value the worth of our people. The flame represents Unitarianism in that we believe that each person seeks and affirms their own truth. We don't teach people what the truth is. People search and find their own truth. It recognizes that this community exists in part to support one another in our paths, while we at the same time are forming our own path. It's a radical sense of inclusiveness. In the 14th century, there was a guy named Jan Hus. He was a Roman Catholic priest. And he, as the priest, he did something that was heretical. Back then, when you did communion, the priest would drink from the chalice, and then they'd send the bread to the people. But he would share the cup with all the people. And because of that, they told him to stop, and when he didn't stop, they burned him at the stake. And his name is Jan Hus, H-U-S. And the word Hus means goose. So they mocked him when they set fire. They mocked him and said, they were cooking your goose. And to further mock him, they put a chalice in his hand. So he went to death affirming universal belief in all people. In 1938, when it came, we found out that Jews were being harmed and harassed in Europe. The Universalist Service Committee, which back then was separate from Unitarians, so the Universalist Service Committee sent food and medical supplies to Europe to help the people in these camps. And on the boxes in which they sent, Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, and there was a flaming chalice. Because people in Europe would recognize this freedom. The music presented by our church choirs and other music makers and guest presenters is an invitation to get out of ourselves and transcend ordinary events. Music can move us to places that words cannot take us. So music is a way to transcend beyond ourselves. Music presented in our church is not performance. What separates performance it's not entertainment, it's not performance, it's spiritual. And the difference is, spiritual is to nourish your soul. Entertainment is what that is. It's to entertain you. This is why I personally would no more applaud music in church than I would between the movements of a symphony. If you applaud them between the movements of a symphony, it's beyond this. You don't do that. The reason you don't do that is because the music takes you someplace, and then you hold that, and then the next movement goes in there. And if you applaud, you wreck the whole thing. Sharing of joys and sorrows is, by the way, joys and sorrows, I tell people, this is our prayers of the people. If you go to an Orthodox or a Catholic church, they have prayers of the people, which is, the priest will say, we pray for the sick, and then the people will respond. Well, this is what we're doing. Joys and sorrows is a prayer. And we say our name because we want people to know who we are. And we want them to share it with us after the service. We open our hearts, trusting that people will care. And then we continue with a time of silence. This is the most precious time of the service for me. It's a time of the service. I personally am starved for silence in my life. It's so rare. Noisy. Life is so noisy. Just a precious few moments of silence makes all the difference. Silence opens you up to receiving beyond the rational verbalization of the world. Most of our Sunday services focus on a theme. The music and the readings, the spoken message center on a theme. Today's theme is worship. The theme may be a social or political concern, a spiritual focus, historical or traditional or educational. It may present a challenge. It might ask you, get up and do something. It may comfort you. It might know that you would come here distraught, so there's some comfort in the words. In all cases, it's about what we value. The hymn following the message is an invitation to join in voices in response. I always see the hymn following a sermon as a response. I heard the sermon, and this is my response. And we receive an offering. Receiving an offering is an invitation to share in the concrete support of our church. It is a recognition that without your financial support, we do not exist. It's a ritual of spiritual significance. Giving is a spiritual act. In giving, we are saying, I have received money in exchange for spending my life. That's when we are looking, the salary I earned because I spent my life earning it. And now I'm giving back of my life to the church because I value the church community. I'm giving a portion of my life to support the church and to support our work beyond the walls. Like occasionally we do the plate, and we can tell by the shared plate what our church's values are. And occasionally we have an in-gathering of new members, recognizing the people who have joined this church, welcoming them, acknowledging the gifts they bring to us, and promising them that we're going to get to know them and share our lives with them. It's a two-way thing. We want their energy, and we want to give back to them. We value community. And before we part, we hold hands and sing shalom. Shalom means hello, goodbye, and peace. This is our closing prayer. We hold hands to symbolize our caring for each other. The words we sing are words of hope that we'll be together again, and that we will keep each other in our hearts until we are together again. But the worship is not over at that time. We then gather around the sacred coffee pot. Some churches call this communion. It's one of my favorite times. I get to talk baseball with some of my friends. Our worship is enhanced by the arts. Look at the music of the sculpture and the paintings and the flowers and the fabrics. We have people in this church who routinely look after these things. They give their time to the church, making sure that we're surrounded by beautiful arts. And all this takes place in a campus. Many trees and plants and flowers, and a sanctuary and other buildings. A memorial rock area, which includes outdoor space of worship, I was reminded today, was the Alcott Amphitheater. We had original members of the church, who gave money to us, and they asked us to. So what we did is we put wooden benches down there, and an altar, and it was all made possible by the Alcott. So and then we also have a place where, like, when I die, my ashes are going to get scattered down there, and so we have a place, a memorial place. So this is a very sacred place on our grounds. The sanctuary is a sacred space. It's made sacred by our intentions and by its history as a place. Weddings, child dedications, memorial services, Sunday services. That's what makes it sacred, not because. That's what makes it sacred. It's our intentions and what we do here. When I come to a church, I have a sense of all that coming to me. When I go back to the Baptist church of my youth, it all floods back to me. All those memories. It's a space of spiritual power. That is how we worship, but that is not the end of it. We set aside a time and space for worship, and one of our main purposes while we're here is to center ourselves and get empowered so we can go back out into the world and bring that to the world. In other words, we don't come here to worship and then leave it. We come to take it with us, to make the world a better place. Sadi, S-A-A-D-I, who was a Muslim, gave us his words from the Islamic tradition. To worship is to serve the people. To worship is to serve the people. This is Muslim tradition. All people are members of the same body, created from one essence. When fate brings suffering to one person, the others cannot stay at rest. That's an Islamic teaching. And then we return here weekly to take our Sabbath. A Sabbath is a time of rest. It's a time away. It's a time separate. It's a time separate. Seventh day is a separate time away from all the mundane business. And we come back to reconnect with people, to be with each other, to open our hearts and our minds, to be nourished and to be challenged and to be changed again. In the words of Jacob Trapp, who was a Unitarian minister way back when, like in the 40s, this is back when Trump said the world was great. Trapp said, "Worship is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal."